Bucks are losers tonight, 127-110 to the Atlanta Hawks. You are now listening to the Cream City crossover. Trey Crosby III.
John Tyus.
Absolutely, we are here. One half of, a duo on your T's and Q's. Every night on 97.3 is heard on iHeartRadio. But in the Cream City crossover, Bucks lose it 127-110 tonight to the Atlanta Hawks. And let's just be just very frank and honest about what happened tonight with the Bucks. They didn't have it. They absolutely did not have it. That was the problem tonight. They didn't look interested. Again, I get it. This is one. You're on the front end of a back-to-back. But it wasn't good, and this was start to finish. I think Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken, this was a wire-to-wire victory for the Atlanta Hawks. Trey Young with 20 points in 32 minutes, 11 dimes. DeJounte Murray, 15 points, 5 assists. Jalen Johnson, 14 points, 6 rebounds. A lot of us had really decent nights tonight. The Bucks were led by Giannis Antetokounmpo with 26 and 10, Malik Beasley 18 and 3, Brook Lopez 13 and 4, Bobby Portis put up 12 and 4. These are just pedestrian numbers. And then of course you had Dame Lilliard with 6 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, 6 turnovers. That was a huge problem for the Milwaukee Bucks. Turnovers at large were a huge problem for the Milwaukee Bucks. It just wasn't good. None of it was good. And you got a game tomorrow against the Miami Heat, and you're gonna have to figure this thing out. Again, it wasn't good on the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball. This was that book, the no good, terrible, really bad day. That's what the Bucks had tonight, and they just did not bring their A game. And again, it's the second game of the Adrian Griffin tenure in Milwaukee, so I'm not gonna take too much from it. I'm not crying about tonight. It is what it is. It's October the 29th, for crying out loud. So I'm not crying at all about what happened. But it wasn't a good night for the Milwaukee Bucks, and they got absolutely spanked. And again, kudos to the Atlanta Hawks for taking it to the Bucks tonight. So if the energy is lower on this program tonight, and I don't know, we'll see. Maybe at some point I'll ramp it up. I'm kind of feeling it myself. But again, if the energy is low, it's because they didn't bring the energy. So I feel, what energy should I got to bring to this post game if there's no energy on the floor? Or at the Fiserv. So you guys let us know how you feel on Twitter as well as in the comments as we're streaming now. Again, welcome to the Cream City Crossover Milwaukee Bucks post game show. Bucks lose at 127-110. John Tyus, let me know how you felt as you were watching that basketball game.
Man, this is the tale of two teams, right? You saw the Bucks team in that emotional win, that first game. And you saw Dame and Dame time, and everybody in the stands is going crazy. They doing the Dame time. It's happened to watch. You watch Damian Lillard take over that game, and you saw the team, right? They came out a little flat, but then they pulled it together. And tonight, this team came out flat. I got to tell you, that first 10 minutes of that first quarter is some of the worst Bucks basketball that I remember, recently watching. The team looked uninspired. They looked unprepared. More importantly, they looked uninterested. They didn't really want to be there. It was a little weird, right? Again, another bad shooting quarter from Giannis, right? Giannis didn't have a great start, even though I will say, let me give him his credit, right? A couple blocks in that first quarter, a couple had some boards and some blocks. So okay, right? If you're not scoring, at least you're contributing some way, but. Man, it was bad, right? I got a glimmer of hope when they went on that 7-0 when they went on that run towards the end of the first and Bobby Portis had 7 points. I said, man, you know what? Hey, we cooking. Okay, Bobby's balling. Let's get it here. But for the most part, it was just bad. The crazy thing to me, though, about this entire night is that some of the stats just don't make sense, right? Like, so for example, usually when you look at a game like this, right, there's eye-popping stats in some certain areas. And you say, okay, that makes sense. That tells the full story, right? For example, the turnover battle. Milwaukee had 23. Atlanta had 17. One of the most important things, though, is look at the points off turnovers. Atlanta had 22 points off of turnovers. Milwaukee also had 22 points off of turnovers. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that's just an anomaly here, right? Usually, I mean, and granted, at one point, the Hawks were up by almost 30, right? And the Bucks ended up losing this game by 17. But then you break it down and you say, all right, well, let's look at free throws. Well, Atlanta was at 82%. Milwaukee was at 80%. Okay, so there's not a big disparity there in free throws. I will say this though. This was awful. Milwaukee was awful tonight on fast break points. 7 points off of fast breaks tonight, which is terrible. I mean, that just can't you got to do a little bit better. Conversely, Atlanta had 25 points on fast breaks tonight. So maybe that tells a little bit more of the story. I don't want to read too much into tonight because this is going to happen from time to time. It does kind of stink that you had that first game that was really, really good for the Bucks, and then you had this second game, which is an absolute clunker.
Yeah, it was. It was clunkers. That's as well as it can be described for the Bucks. And I have some questions related to Adrian Griffin. Again, the defense, some of that trapping and what's going on. It works at times, but again, this is 2 games in, so I do want to I want to make note of that and make mention of it. But there are so many missed assignments with this basketball team. Tons of missed assignments, tons of missed rotation, tons of times where things they just don't look right. And Atlanta looked like a team that didn't want to go 0-3. They're 0-2 basketball team right now, or at least now 1-2. But they look like a team that did not want to continue on that slide. Want to give a shout out and props to our player of the game, Nicolay High School's finest. The player of the game was Jalen Johnson from the Atlanta Hawks. I know me and John, we talked about it and discussed, hey, what we're gonna do, player of the game. But you can't even find a way, JT, to give the player of the game to anybody from Milwaukee. They just didn't deserve it. It wasn't worth it. They didn't do a good job. And Jalen Johnson again, he ends up with 14, and I think that he was outscored by a couple guys. But I thought this was a game where the Atlanta Hawks were up 20 points in the first half, right? Like this was out of reach let me not say out of reach. This was a double-digit game for a very long time. And I thought Jalen Johnson, especially in the first quarter and throughout the second quarter, until he picked up the 3 fouls, I thought that he was tremendous, superb. He had that huge block on Martin. And again, some of that just goes to the laziness, the laissez-faire, of kind of how the Bucks went. That was, I think, a turnover where Marjan gets the ball and is running with a free lane down the floor, and he cocks it back instead of just either getting a layup or dunking the ball right over the rim. He cocks it back. And and allows Jalen Johnson to get in there and block the shot, and they called a foul, and it was overturned on replay. But again, I thought it was the correct call. That he got the ball and then got the slap in there. He did slap his wrist a little bit, but he got the ball first, and they called it the high five rule or whatever. And listen, and it was just an effort and energy thing. We talk about it. How many times we talk about it throughout the years about just effort and energy and all those things. And the Atlanta Hawks brought it, and the Bucks just looked a little flat.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would also say the thing about this as well, though, is that, man, if you look at this loss, this was more of a death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? You think about it, Atlanta had 8 guys in double figures. Nobody did anything eye-popping on that side. It's not like, oh, okay, Trae Young just went off and put 40 up on us, right? No, that's not what happened. And if you look at it, right, you literally take a moment, look at the box score, it's like, wow, these dudes were just pretty efficient, right? They shot 50% as a team tonight from the field. And, again, guys, for example, I mean, Trae Young was probably the only one that wasn't efficient, right? Because Murray was 6 for 12, Capella 5 for 10, Johnson 6 for 10, Hunter 6 for 10. Man, I can never pronounce his name. Okongwu is what I'm gonna go with, though. 7 for 11, right? Bogdanovich 6 for 10. You look at how efficient these guys were, and I agree with you, Trey, and I do wonder though, right? One, I would want to give, because we don't want to be in the excuse-making business. We want to keep that, right? We want to keep it 100 with y'all, right? But I do wonder what impact is the departure of Terry Stotts on the offensive side playing, not having that voice, right? Not having that voice, being familiar with the offense that was installed. Do you think that's maybe having an impact on the offense right now?
No, I listen. I can't go there yet. I can't go there yet. And maybe so, but I cannot go there. I will not go there just yet. Again, 2 games in, I just can't say that. I think I will say I thought there were a lot of decent shots. You talked about it before in some of the we were talking before we went on air about Malik Beasley, who was 4 for 10 from 3. I thought he hit some shots. I thought there were some shots from Jay Crowder that could have went down. Dame Lilliard had a ton of shots that if he hits a few of those. Think about this. At the half, John Tyus, the Milwaukee Bucks, Damian Lillard was a negative 31. Giannis was a plus minus was at 0. So if guys had just played up to his level and just kind of where he was at, this should have been a game. And again, you talked about it. I thought when MarJon entered the game in the first quarter, I know he picked up 3 fouls, but I thought the defensive intensity picked up a bit. I thought they had a real opportunity there. You just said it. They had an opportunity, and they got the lead down to like 6 points. I think it was 5 points going into the second quarter, but they just could not sustain that momentum. Couldn't do anything. And speaking of that, John Tice. Talking about how this game started off, let's talk about what happened, at the very beginning of this thing, right? And you saw it. It was Flavor Flav who came out and did this. I mean, and it goes on, but John, just tell me what you thought when you heard Flavor Flav's rendition of the national anthem. And again, you talk about it was Terry Stotts. You talk about missing Terry Stotts is a problem. Do you think they heard that anthem and they said, nah, we ain't got it tonight, fellas?
Man, I got to tell you, there's some terrible national anthems we've heard, right? Obviously, you and I weren't around for it, but Carl Lewis, you can Google that one. Roseanne Barr, you can Google that one. We saw Fergie at the All-Star game.
I was in the house with Fergie in LA at that All-Star game, too.
And I'm going to go ahead and put this one up there with good and terrible, right? Good and terrible All-Star or good and terrible anthems. The thing about this, right? And when I heard that Flavor Flav was singing the national anthem, I was like, man, this is so unserious, right? And that's not even, I don't even think it's a word, right? But this is not serious. Like, they're not serious about this. This is a joke, right? And to me, to an extent, it's a little bit insulting to the people who are really singers and the people who take this seriously and the people who actually put work into their craft and want to get out there and promote themselves and do this for the community, right? To have the privilege to sing the anthem for the Bucks game. It's like, man, you want to show that that's something that you take seriously as an org and that the person who's singing it takes seriously. And I mean, yeah, honestly, like, if he'd have got up there and rapped it, I'd have said, okay, you right? Like, if he'd have got up there and rapped it, I'd have said, all right, look, I mean, I get it, where there's some creativity there, but he knows his limits. But to get up there and just stink it up like that, it's like, man, come on,
man. He actually came out with a statement after this and said, and I'll read it. Flavor Flav on Twitter, or now X, said the anthem was a long-time bucket list item. That was fun. I can't live my life worried about what people might say about me. I won't let that stop me from trying new things and doing things I want to do. Some people might not like it, but a sure failure is if you stop trying. Listen, I'm not mad at it. The attempt was there. I think he fell short. I don't know if it sounded as bad in the arena. I did hear some people say it wasn't as bad in the arena as it was, listening to it and hearing it. And I think, a lot of the Twitterverse and whatnot, social media is going to go kind of crazy with it. And it's a little bit of a viral moment. But, hey, man, what I like to say, I'll say this about Flavor Flav. He tried something different. I don't think it went well, but he's going to make some headlines. And, it's good to see some of these people still kicking. As I get older, we saw who's it just passed away from Friends?
Matthew Perry.
Matthew Perry. Yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, I'll just say, as you see some of our celebrities and stars that, from yesteryear age and get older, it's just good to see, Flav is up and kicking. And it's not the Flavor Love house with him in New York and all the people. But he's still around. He's watching some basketball and he's having some fun. So I give him that. I give him some credit for having some fun. But yeah, it was rough. I wonder who came up with that. He's I don't know. Like, does MarJon Beauchamp rap? Is that what it is? I know he has the connection with MarJon. He's been in a lot of Bucks games recently. But yeah, it was interesting.
Man, listen, I hear you. When it's good to see him alive and kicking. And you know what would have been perfect if he was sitting courtside. And camera zoomed in on that man. Maybe they come and they ask him a couple questions or something and kept it pushing. I think that would have worked. My only issue with Flavor Flav singing the national anthem, right? Think about the best franchises in the NBA, right? Your most well-run franchises in the NBA, right? And what franchise would have let him do that? besides Milwaukee.
Well, same franchise that Ja Rule was. Are you ready?
Okay, right. Again, right. So whoever the corporate sponsorship or whoever the person is that's in charge, that the marketing person, like, yo, what are we doing?
Hey,
like,
hey, what they say? Hey, I say all publicity is good publicity. Eyeballs were on the Milwaukee Bucks pregame festivities and the national anthem, so they had that going for them. I give them that, right? You give them that.
I guess, man.
Yes.
I guess. You know what though? I will say though, on a night like this where the team just absolutely stunk, it just adds. You literally say, okay, we started this thing off on the bad foot.
It makes sense.
Like, we 100%.
It made sense. Speaking of awful, I hate to do it. I hate to have to kind of continue on and talk about it, but your boy Dame Lillard had 6 points and 6 turnovers. He just didn't have it. The game wasn't there. He looked like he was off. His shot making abilities were off. I think he finishes, like I said, 6 points, 5 assists, 4 boards, 2 of 12 from the field. That's 2 of 8 from 3. Again, 2 of 12 was good for 16.7%. But the turnovers were a big problem. I guess, some of my question to you related to Dame is, and again, you saw how the heroics that he had, in game 1 against Philly, but tonight he just didn't have it. And hopefully that's an anomaly. But we have to talk about it again. He had a preseason. He didn't play well in preseason. Again, he comes up huge against Philly and does Dame-like things. And then tonight, he looked lost. And it's one thing to miss shots. I think that's one thing that people see. You miss some shots. But it's another when, just nothing came together. And so, again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to punt it. I'm going to chalk it up to just a bad night from him. I'm not putting all the loss on him. I'm going to put a lot of it on him. It is what it is. Tonight just wasn't his night. But I'm not upset about it. It's okay. These things kind of happen. Nights like tonight will happen. It sucks that it's happened in the second game of the year. You kind of want to see the Bucks get on a roll, and maybe that happened somewhere throughout or something of that nature. But again, tonight was a night, and you hope you can take this game, put it in the garbage can, and keep moving.
Yeah, I think the thing about here's what I'll say. You cannot. You can bet. Would you bet? I bet my 401k.
Okay.
That this is not going to be a consistent thing with Dame. He's not going to go 2 for 12 or 2 for 8 from 3. Right. We're not going to be looking at a stretch of games where Dame Lillard does that. Interesting thing is, he went 2 for 8 tonight, or 2 for 8 from 3, which is a little bit aligned with what he was doing in the preseason. Right. He was shooting around 20% from 3 in the preseason. And I think, tonight 2 for 8 was at 25%. Okay, right? So that's kind of in there. Couple things though with Dame that I think here's the advantage or I guess the disadvantage he has from getting added to the squad so late. The first one is you don't really know your teammates that well. You just don't really know that team as you didn't have a lot of time to bond with these guys and learn these guys, and so you don't. And the reason why that's important is because sometimes you got to be able to talk to people. You got to be able to motivate people. You got to know what fuels people. You got to know what gets people going. You got to know certain guys like stuff at different spots. You got to know, hey, my man is having a slump right now, so let me go ahead and see if I can't figure something out to get him something really, really favorable to get his confidence, to get him motivated back. Sometimes that takes time to learn. On the same note, it's the same way with them and Dame. They haven't really played that much with Dame. So Dame tonight, he had some decent looks, but he was down in the dumps. And I'm not sure how nobody on that team had played with long enough to figure out, okay, how we get Dame going here? What can we do, right? Because even in that first game, it was Dame just being Dame. At the end of the day, it was Dame just going out to the blacktop, playing playground ball and just kind of doing his thing, right? So what I'm saying is that it's not the finished product isn't there. There's going to be some pains there. There 100% going to be some pains there. I'm not convinced that Giannis and Dame are really still on the same page at this point. I think, like we talked about, we got Clark Kent, we got Bruce Wayne at this point, right? And they're learning how to play together. It's going to take some time for that to fuse together too.
If you're just joining us on the Cream City crossover, it was a 127-110 loss. The Milwaukee Bucks fall to the Atlanta Hawks, falling to 1-1 on the year. Giannis and company could not get it done. Dame Lilliard had a rough night, again 6.6 turnovers. I want to kind of keep moving along. Actually, I'll stay right there on the Dame point for 1 second, JT. And I asked this last question before we move on to some injury things around the league and even with the Bucks as well. My one last question about Dame. Do you think that because people were texting me during the game? Yeah, obviously, they know I'm a big Bucks fan. Obviously, people are oh, Dame didn't do well. Look at what the Bucks getting whooped. That's just how it goes. I'm loud and obnoxious about the Bucks. So when the Bucks lose, people are gonna hit me up. So it was rough. But one of the things that was in the group chat people were talking about was does Dame Lillard, did he ever, even in Portland, did he make his teammates better? And, that was one of the questions. And I posed that to you. Do you think, does Dame Lillard make guys better? And as an aside from that, tonight, where he isn't going off for 30 and he isn't impacting the game in the way he needs to, it also didn't translate to other guys as well. I don't necessarily think that I believe that. Dame Lillard has averaged 7 assists for his career. I don't necessarily believe that. But I will say, again, I watched a lot of Dame. There were years that were good, but I think a lot of people forgotten how good Dame is, and I think it had to be reminded the other night against Philly. But I just want to throw that out there and at least ask the question about your thoughts on Dame Lillard as a facilitator and making teammates better, not necessarily when he gets his own shot, because we know how great Dame is when he's going for 30+. He can get 40 in his sleep, and he's having one of those type nights. But when Dame is off shooting the ball for himself, can he make the other guys around him that much better? Can he elevate their games?
That's a really good question. Admittedly, I didn't watch too much of Portland, right? Like I couldn't tell you. I've watched hundreds of Bucks games. I have not watched hundreds of Blazers games. So I don't want to tell you. I don't want to portray myself as a Blazers expert. Here's what I will say. I think Dame, for a long time in Portland, look, there was a talent gap. There just was not. He was not working with a whole lot. Having said that, I think that if he made his teammates, probably, right? Like, I think he can. I 100% think he can make these guys on the Bucks better. Yes, absolutely. But I think it's because you have guys who are a little bit more talented in the first place. And 100% could see him facilitating to Chris and the Giannis and Beasley and facilitating to those guys. And then even then, when the role players come in, when guys like Big Shot Pat comes in and AJ Green comes in, and setting those guys up to be successful too, I can 100% see him do that. I think the issue with him in Portland was it was literally at some point the offense had to turn to the Bel Air Academy. All right, y'all get out the way. I might have to do what I got to do to help to keep us competitive. Whereas here, you have a squad. You have a legitimate squad. You have arguably one of the deepest teams in the NBA. So, to answer your question, can Dame Lillard make his teammates better? I 100% say yes. I think he can, and I think it's way too early to say anything to the contrary here. Again, we're 2 games in.
Okay. Listen, I don't necessarily disagrady. I think you're absolutely right on that, and I hope that plays itself out throughout the year. Again, I do think I think they figured this out. I really do. I think they figured this out. Game 2, gonna keep pushing. I want to move on. Let's keep the show rolling. And talk about the NBA's rest policy. We saw Jimmy Butler sit out the other night. I believe it was the Miami Heat's home opener the other night. He sat out. We saw Joel Embiid sit out tonight for the Philadelphia 76ers in the 76ers home debut. And again, this is coming off of the heels, right? This is coming off of the heels, or that was excuse me, that might have been last night, whichever night it was that he sat. But this is again coming off the heels of I can't see what game is being played, but anyway, the Philadelphia 76ers announced that Joel Embiid is going to miss the next game due to rest or whatever it is. But this is coming off the heels of the NBA announcing their NBA rest policy, right? Where they allegedly were going to start. There was the policies in place to where you can't rest two stars, on on back-to-back nights, or you can't rest 2 stars on one night, and especially if they're on the road or what have you. It seems like the NBA right now, or excuse me, it seems like the teams right now are not afraid of Adam Silver. They don't care. It does not matter because I question, and again, they're announcing as will not play rest. Maybe there's some official that I'm missing, but I saw Joel Embiid will not play due to rest. How in the hell are you resting 3 games into the season? What do you mean you need rest 3 games into the season? How does that make sense? Adam Silver's got to get a handle on this. He's got it because this is terrible for the NBA. This is bad product. All this is bad. And so I get your question. I want to ask you about that particularly first, and then we'll pivot to Chris Middleton before we wrap this thing up tonight.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think at this point, right, these teams are going to make a mockery of this rest policy. It seems to me like the teams are always going to be one step ahead of Adam Silver when it comes to this, right? Like they talk about star players having to be available. I think one of the prongs of the policy is star players have to be available for nationally televised games, and then like you said, it's the one superstar player.
I'm gonna apologize. So Soham Bachata, so Embiid did end up playing. So I'm gonna apologize to Joel Embiid. It was announced earlier he wasn't gonna play, but he did end up playing. So I will lay off of him. But I'll go back at Jimmy Butler, who did not play the other night. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that the hardest part is the teams are always going to stay ahead of Adam Silver. They're going to stay one step ahead, right? Because again, unfortunately, especially the professional sports level, everybody at some point is playing hurt, right? You learn this even playing college ball. You can play hurt, you can't play injured. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like
But that's like they're not even hurt. They're not even hurt to start this. How you hurt? You're not hurt in the 3rd game of the season. You're not hurt.
Yeah, but look, if you have a team who has a strategy and a training staff who's willing to support that strategy and everybody kind of gets it, I don't see, if you're Adam Silver, I don't see how you start curbing this unless you start really digging into this and figuring out what's legitimate and what's not. But then the other thing is what are the repercussions, right? Do we know what the violations are? If you violate this policy, what are the penalties?
Yeah, well, it remains to be said. I know there's supposed to be investigations into guys missing these games and what have you, and then they'll figure out the punishments from there. Supposed to be fines and whatnot, but again,
nobody cares about fines.
Well,
nobody care about fines. Okay, you're gonna find somebody. You're gonna find a team 50 bands. Right. I mean, okay, right, like.
Bucks in 4, listening, appreciate it. Says a bad day for Wisconsin sports. Bucks will bounce back at least. Yeah, I think the Packers. I think it might be rough on Green Bay here. Chris King listens to the show, of course. You know he is. He says shout out to the Carolina Panthers. You see it, Bryce Young getting his first win today. I was in attendance at BOA for that. And then chiming back in with Adam Silver is a joke. I thought it was interesting at the Panthers game tonight, this afternoon. Where not only did David Tepper, owner of the Panthers, get booed, but also Roger Goodell was in attendance for Julius Peppers and Muhsin Muhammad being inducted into the Panthers Wall of Honor. Anyway, the Hall of Honor for the Carolina Panthers. Roger Goodell was there and he got booed as well. I think Adam Silver get booed a lot of places too. Last question before we do our look ahead, John Tyus. Chris Middleton did not play tonight. He played a grand total of 16 minutes in game 1. He misses all of tonight, doesn't play again. Front end of a back-to-back. Question to you, are you concerned, JT, with Chris Middleton and his absences?
Not yet, right? Not yet. I'm not so here's the thing I'm a little curious about with Chris, though. He had that surgery. It was a cleanup surgery in June, right? Was it June or May? All right, either way, let's call it 5 months ago. Or July. Okay, so 4 months ago, right? So he had that cleanup surgery. He looked like he was moving well on night 1. I know there's a minutes restriction, and they're ramping him up, and they're holding him out. I know he's not playing back-to-backs right now, and I can live with that for now. Having said that, we get 25 games in. If there's still some restrictions and there's still some things going on, then I say, okay, wait a minute. What exactly is the deal here, right? Why? Why are we doing this? Because the other thing is, if they're doing something out of an abundance of caution, then you have to say, okay, well, what are you being cautious about, right? Is there something degenerative going on? Is there potentially something brewing under the surface that you're going to have to manage? Because if that flares up, it's that's kind of the question. And again, I say this all the time, and I hate switching sports with it, but this is a little bit a little bit like the Todd Gurley type situation, right? When he was hurt or when something was going on and they wouldn't really say it, they weren't really all that forthcoming, and it was like, is he injured? Was it? And then all of a sudden, like that played out a few years after that started. But if this is just precautionary and Chris is fine and Chris can play, hopefully more than 33 games this year, which, by the way, because some of y'all Bucs fans are going to jump all over me for this. Yes, he balled out in the playoffs last year. I get it. But right, do we want to see him play 30, 40 games this year and then hope that he's got the juice in the playoffs? Obviously not. Not with a new squad, not with a new offense, not with new personnel. No, we need Chris out there playing, but if there is a reason to be precautious, if there's a reason to take precautions, then okay, I can live with that for now. But 20-something games in, I think that it's alarming if we're still doing this.
No, I absolutely agree with all of that. I know people went crazy on me today, as I talked about once it was announced Chris Middleton wasn't going to play again, and I'll just say this: I wasn't saying it to say that I was upset that he wasn't playing today. I'm fine with it. It's just when you start to couple it all together, things don't seem to add up. That's just my opinion. And again, you talk about surgery or this, because that's the thing, JT. It's not, oh, we got this big surgery for Christmas. No, it's just a scope. It's just minor. Oh, it's so minor. It's just minor. And then you get to camp. Well, he can't go full because he had this minor procedure, right? That's why he can't go in camp. It's a minor procedure. We got to ease him back into it. So that's the question. Well, is it minor? Because if it's minor, I would think that you'd be ready to go. But maybe it's not minor. I mean, maybe it's a little more than minor. Well, no, we're just being precautious. Okay. Then we come back and Chris is, well, is he gonna play? I'm gonna play two. I'm gonna play the preseason. No, not really. I'm gonna play 2 games. I'm gonna play 2 games. Okay. Then he comes back and plays 1 game. Then he had the question where they asked Adrian Griffin, "Hey, AG, is Chris gonna, are you? I've mentioned this. I've talked about this before. When they ask Adrian Griffin, are you gonna, what's going on with Chris? Oh, what do you mean? What injury? It's all this. Oh, we got a plan. It seems weird. Then he comes out. We say, well, I don't know if he's gonna be ready to play against Philly. Game 1 comes out. Of course he's not ready. He only plays 15 minutes, and so it goes. And again, I'm not upset about it. I think that's what people are like getting. That I'm in like this panic mode. I'm not in panic mode. I want to say that 1,000 times. I'm not in panic mode. But I am a bit concerned because when you can't get your story straight or you don't want to give a timeline, it leads me to believe things are a little bit worse than they are. Because, again, in July, it's minor. But we talking about we're in October. We're about to hit November, and he can't give you 15 minutes a night. Again, I'm not mad. It's not the thing about not playing back-to-backs. It's when you couple things together, and this on top of this, and being secretive and procedure, and this is spanned across the span of 3 seasons. Hurt against the Bulls in 2020 and 2022 playoffs. Come back, you don't play the next most of the next year, and now you're and again he played. Like I said, John, he played well this last playoffs. But then you move to this year, and we're gonna be hurt headed into November, or at least, well, no, he's not hurt. He's fine. They're just being precautious. What's the deal? That's my only thing is what's the deal? Then tell me when he's ready. That's all I'm saying. Or if he can't be ready, sit him down until it's time. Why don't we just, if he's not ready, why don't you sit him until November the 30th and say, hey, December 1, Chris Middleton's ready to go 100%. Why don't we do that? If we got to be so precautious with him, that's all I'm saying. This month-long ramp-up, I'm not a big fan of it. Again, I'm just not a big fan of we ramp up guys for a month. It's one thing to ramp up a guy over the course of a few games, but if you need a month-long ramp-up, you're just not ready to go. You're just not ready. It'd be like, man, you see them ramps, you need to go. Of course, y'all got to be ADA accessible, JT. But when you need a wheelchair or whatever it is, you got to go up a ramp. You make a ramp people go on, right? You don't start the ramp. You go to the parking lot. You walk in the building. The ramp is right in front of the building. You don't start the ramp from the last car in the parking lot. Oh, this long ramp. No, it's a ramp up. You get there. You get to your destination. You're almost there, and you take the ramp into the building. You don't start the ramp when you get out the car. That's what this feels like, Chris Middleton, that the ramp starts when we get to the car. That's why I just never seen, except with the Bucks and Chris Middleton, where you have this month-long ramp up. Everybody's ramping up for 2 months. I can't stand the word ramp up. It's not just a Bucks, it's the NBA pro. Ramp up. Everybody's got to ramp up, man. Get to the damn facility and then take the ramp. I'm sorry.
Look, I get it. let me ask you this question because I think this is a fair one. Do you think that there is maybe a limited amount of tread on that knee for a season, and the Bucks know it? Right? Like, do you think there's X amount of minutes before you have a significant issue? Right. And I say that just because look at it in the aggregate, right? You've had numerous knees, and I'll tell you, for an explosive athlete, right? The ankle, the knee, and the hip, them three injuries. Look, if there's something wrong with your ankle, your knee, your hip, that is going to again slowly chips away at a player's explosiveness, slowly chips away at a player's mobility, right? Do you think that it could be a situation where there's a limited amount of tread on Chris, and even after you've quote unquote like the ramp up period, you're probably rarely going to see him play up into 30, 35 minutes during the regular season?
I hope not. And again, everybody in Bucks Twitter hopes not. And again, I think people think that different reasons. Oh, you just hating on Chris. I'm not. I'm hoping not. I think that I want to believe that he's fine. But yeah, there's a legitimate question. I think there are legitimate questions. Can he give you 60 games and the playoffs, or is he becoming more of a he got 30 games in him, and in these playoffs, he's gonna be these. I see what you're saying, like these limited stretches. I truly don't know. I'm hoping that it's not what you said. That's what I'm hoping. But I don't know, and I think people who pretend like they do know, I think they're lying to you. I think they're hoping as well. But I'll tell you. So officially, again, I'm not pushing the panic button. I just think it's weird and interesting. My panic level, my alert level for Chris Middleton is a 3. I'm on a 3 out of 10 right now for my concern level for Chris Middleton throughout the year. I reserve the right to move that up or down as the year goes on.
Well, look, I mean, to put it in perspective, right? A 3 in the second game, it doesn't sound like much, but it's a little bit concerning because it's 0 for everybody else.
Yeah, right,
you see what I'm saying? Like right now, based on what you see, it's 0. So if you had a 3 in the second game, I mean, it seems low on a 10-point scale. Having said that, we only 2 games in. So if you had a 3 right now, I mean, okay. So this was a legitimate concern. I think this is something that we're definitely going to have to monitor. It's something we're going to have to continue watching. One thing I will say though is, listen, the Bucks have invested a lot of money in Chris Middleton over the next 3 years, right? So keep in mind, as a franchise, you got to protect your investment. And when does everybody earn their paycheck? It's not right now. No, it's not right now. Not when you have one of the best teams in the league. You could argue you're not earning your paycheck till you get to the second round of the playoffs. We got to make it there.
Same thing with Adrian Griffin. He's not going to – his paycheck won't be earned.
True.
Everything we talk about Adrian Griffin is not going to be determined until we get to May. 100%. I'm right there with you on that. All right, let's keep the show rolling, keep it moving. Let's take our look ahead and look around the NBA. Let's see what happened tonight. The Bucks, of course, lose 127-110. The Nuggets got a win tonight, 128-95 over the Thunder. They improved to 3-0. The Clippers are 1-1 right now, playing Victor Wembanyama, 56-37 at the half. Kings and Lakers are going at it at the half. And the 76ers, again, with Joel Embiid, they did win 126-98 over the Blazers. Tomorrow night, the Milwaukee Bucks are back in action. That means we're going to be back in action with the Cream City crossover. You know it is. We don't take no breaks, baby. We don't take breaks around here. Hardest working men in sports entertainment. Bucks Heat. Starting at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. The Bucks are they're gonna do battle, trying to get a dub. Going to remain at 5-star form, and we'll see if the energy picks up tomorrow. What are you looking for? What are you expecting? I'm assuming that Jimmy Butler, he took the night off the other night. I'm assuming he will play tomorrow night against the Milwaukee Bucks. Rematch of the playoffs. Do you think that there's gonna be maybe some added level of intrigue there because of what Miami did to the Bucks last year in the playoffs?
I mean, as a Bucks fan, I would love to see the Heat go 0-3. I'd love to see the Heat start 0-3. I know they took an L to the Celtics, 119-111, and took an L to the Timberwolves, 106-90. So yeah, I'd love to see the Heat lead this thing 0-3. Yeah, there's a bit of intrigue, I think, a little bit. But it's a different squad, right? This is a different Bucks team, and I think that first off, I'd love to see the Heat just absolutely look overwhelmed on defense tomorrow. And I think that may be able to happen. I 100% think that may be happening, especially if the Bucks come out clicking. Having said that, though, man, let's contain Jimmy. right? I don't want Jimmy to start thinking he's a Buck Slayer and let Jimmy go off at 35 plus tomorrow night. Let's make sure we contain Jimmy, keep him in check. Really want to see Giannis come out and take it to. I want Miami tomorrow. I want it to look like they're too small, and I want it to be obvious that they're too small to get out there and bang with Giannis and Brook. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we all would love to see the Bucks come out and do. I think there's gonna be a little level of intrigue there. I think the Bucks are gonna feel some type of way as they should. You know, they should have a sour taste left in their mouth from not only from what happened last year, but what happened tonight. And Dame should also feel that. You talk about Giannis, your guy to watch tomorrow is Giannis. My guy I'm watching tomorrow night is Dame Lilliard because I think he's got a lot to prove, to show up and show out, you know, because tonight was an anomaly, and I think it was. But you can't have those nights back-to-back. And that's the difference between being great players and good players and average players, and those is that, yeah, things can happen every now and then, but they're not going to happen to you all the time. One more thing to get to. Chargers are up 27-7 right now over the Chicago Bears. People interested in that as well. I give it to you. Any final thoughts, John Tyus, on tonight? It was a rough night for the Milwaukee Bucks. They just don't get it done. They did not have enough by any means, any stretch of the imagination. It was a 127-110 loss to the Atlanta Hawks. JT, final thoughts before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, I'll say Adrian Griffin, right? It's been a roller coaster for you for your first couple games. You had the emotional first night. You had a stinker for the second night. So really, your job, come out tomorrow, right? How did your team respond? You saw how your team responded after that emotional game. They looked like they overslept, right? So tomorrow, hey, do we come out firing, right? Do we say, hey, we're not going to put together two back-to-back terrible games? We still got him just 3 games in, like let's go, like, and that's the thing. That's what I want to see, because I feel like as a coach, maybe that's a little bit of your job is to motivate people, to get people going. Go ahead and you see your team already, you know, shrugging their shoulders, looking tired, like, all right, well, let's come out fired up tomorrow. And what I really want to see tomorrow is I want to see a strong first quarter tomorrow for the Bucks.
Yeah.
I want to see a strong first quarter, right? Now, what happens after that is what happens after that. But tomorrow, I want to see these boys jump out the gate and take it to Miami. I don't want to see I definitely don't want to see the first 10 minutes that I saw tonight.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you. 100%. The Bucks have got to be much better. They got to look better. They got to play better. And yeah, I want to see them start fast. All those things that you mentioned, JT. Role players stepping up. And I think defensively, I want to see. You can't get, was it 127, 110? You can't get 130 points. You're not going to win. Unless your offense is going crazy and you're having this offensive output all the time. And again, clearly you didn't do it tonight. 130 means you got to be rolling on O. And so you want to see defense kind of step up. And again, I'll give it to them as just one night, but you got to get those rotations. Got to play better. Not as handsy as either. Like I said, 3 fouls for Campaign, 3 fouls Marjon Beauchamp. Those things you gotta not do those type of things, and you gotta not turn the ball over. You can't. 19 turnovers for the Milwaukee Bucks tonight? That's too much. Get into single digit turnovers tomorrow night. Dame Lillard have a much better night, and you want to see the Bucks start fast, like you said, not come out flat in either half. So I think those are all good things to look forward to. You can look forward to us tomorrow night on the Cream City crossover. We will be back at it again with the matchup Milwaukee Bucks Miami Heat. Again, it was a 127-110 loss. The Atlanta Hawks take the win from the Milwaukee Bucks on the road. Milwaukee Bucks getting back at home tomorrow night against the Miami Heat. For John Tyus and the Guru, Trey Crosby III. Appreciate you guys listening to Cream City Crossover. Don't take no wood nickels. Courage.